Good morning to all the members of the press. Good morning to all BVI landers listening in. Today I propose to brief you on a couple of matters. One, growth in the employment sector in BVI, and secondly, growth in the tourism sector. Let us take first a look at employment. There is no indicator stronger than employment when gauging the strength of an economy. As you know, since my government came into office in November 2011, we immediately mobilized programs to put more of our people to work. We moved in this direction so that we could empower people and at the same time build a better Virgin Islands. For example, we instituted a Youth Unemployment Register, now called the Youth Employment Register, inviting private and public sector establishments to provide job opportunities for the young people. We introduced the National Business Bureau to ensure small business development, which would in turn lead to employment opportunities. We welcomed the Employment Services Unit at the Labor Department to assist with job placement and training of those seeking job opportunities. And we held job fairs and continue to provide professional development training workshops to position our people for this competitive world. These different programs continue to receive favorable feedback, along with other initiatives my government is doing in different areas of the economy to spur on economic activity. At this time, I'm pleased to announce that preliminary figures from the Social Security Board and the Central Statistics Office, formerly the Development Planning Unit, indicate an overall 1.2% growth in the number of persons employed for the first 6 months of 2013 when compared to the first 6 months of 2012. This means 198 more persons were employed in 2013 than in 2012. That is the first 2 months. Preliminary figures show that additional jobs were added in every month for the first half of 2013 when compared to the same month for 2012. Notably, the numbers of persons employed for January increased by 1.3%. This means a significant 210 more persons were gainfully employed. With a March increase of 1.8%, 281 more persons were employed. This is good, as these increases mean that government must remain committed to action. We must remain optimistic about the continued positive growth of this territory, and we must remain dedicated to the public we serve. I'm pleased to report that tourism figures for the first quarter of 2014 have seen a substantial 13.65% increase in the total number of visitors to our shows. This means over 44,000 more visitors in the first quarter of 2014 as compared to the first quarter of 2013. This includes 40,000 more cruise passengers as compared to the first quarter of 2013 and 4,000 more overnight visitors as compared to 2013. The overall increase for this quarter is a clear indication that the tourism sector of the Virgin Islands is recovering. Next year, we expect to see this number increase even more as we work to complete the new cruise pair and up our promotional activities. As we prepare for the new class of ships and more ships to grace our facility, I'm asking us to get ready. The BVI Tourist Board continues to do its part. In fact, just yesterday morning, the director, Sharon Flax Mars, was a guest of the Lifetime Morning Show Balancing Act, promoting the BVI as a destination. And there are other initiatives in place to get visitors to the territory. But not only are we not working to attract visitors, we are working towards attracting tourism investment by positioning the territory for potential opportunities. Just last month, I led a delegation to attend the Caribbean Hotel and Resort Investment Summit, CRIS, in Miami, Florida. CRIS is an annual event which convenes leaders in the hotel industry to discuss important trends, network, and identify new opportunities through a combination of plenary sessions, breakout panels, and interactive development workshops. The highlight of the summit for the BVI was a breakout plenary where we presented an overview of the British Virgin Islands as a tourism destination, as well as identified potential investment opportunities in the BVI tourism sector. Attending the summit was important as a primary objective was to pursue networking opportunities with leading institutions in the hotel industry, including investor entities who may be interested in development opportunities in the BVI. It is important that we attract investment into the territory's tourism sector and ultimately the BVI economy. As my government continues to build relations and network with industry partners, in a few days, the BVI will be on display as part of the Caribbean Tourism Organization's Caribbean Week in New York. We continue to see the benefits of aligning ourselves with CTO, that is the Caribbean Tourism Organization, as we'll have an exclusive opportunity to showcase our unique holiday attributes to New Yorkers and visitors to the Big Apple. Our goal is to remind them why the BVI is a sparkling jewel in the Caribbean, a crown of holiday destinations, and a most desirable warm weather destination. Again, get ready BVI, for we are on a mission to sell an experience. I've just shared some good news on current employment for the BVI and our tourism numbers. Thank you for listening. I welcome your questions for a discussion.
Good day, Premier. Sean Rose, JTV News. Thank you for the figures on the tourism numbers. But in terms of the investment in tourism, could you give us an update on the Prospect Reef project and also the proposed Beef Island development project?
Thank you. You would recall that several months ago, I made an announcement that we had invited a particular organization to develop Prospect Reef. That invitation still stands, but the organization has not moved forward with the project as yet. As far as the Beef Island, the project is concerned, that again is being promoted, was promoted as one of our investment opportunities when we visited Chris. We also identified spoke about the Prospect Reef as well as a potential area for investment, and any other investment opportunity that the people may be aware of in the country. For example, there are other hotels and resorts that may be attractive to investors. So we were able to paint a picture or present a picture of what is happening currently in the BVI, basically to demonstrate what exists, show the various opportunities and various resorts and hotels that exist, and how attractive the BVI is, to give the persons who attended an appetite for investment in the BVI.
And based on those discussions, have you had any meaningful, significant offers or intentions to invest in BVI?
We have had several people who particularly at our session, who express a significant interest in the BVI. We have been in contact with them since our return, and we expect several of them to visit the BVI.
Good morning, Beverly Lewis, ZBVI Radio. Dr. Smith, the 1.2% in the employment sector, is it solely attributed to the Youth Employment Service or other areas and that the Youth Employment Service combined?
Other areas, everything combined. Youth Employment Service, the agency set up in the Labor Department, the activities of the Business Bureau, everything combined, yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about Caribbean Week in New York? I know I saw a flyer which said that BVI chefs are going to be there, Imran Ashton. What other aspects of BVI is going to be on display at Caribbean Week in New York?
We're going to be doing two things. First, when we get to New York, we're going to be attending an investment seminar similar to the one we attended in Miami. And at that seminar, we will be again promoting and discussing investment opportunities in particularly the tourism sector in the BVI. Secondly, during the CTO itself, BVI will have a chance of promoting itself along with the other destinations. There will be meetings of the Council of Ministers, the tourism ministers. There will be meetings of the tourism directors where decisions will be made for the progress and what would be happening as far as CTO is concerned over the next few years. Apart from you mentioned the cook, Mr. Imran, he will be there, because usually there is a display where all the various countries who participate are able to display some aspect of their territory. In this case, Mr. Imran will be displaying the culinary aspect of the BVI.
Okay, it has nothing to do with your speech, but it's sort of related. While there is good news in the tourism sector and in the employment sector as well, there is a concern about the cost of living, Dr. Smith, and especially as it relates to when you go to the supermarket. And I know some time ago there was a committee, I believe, set up to look at the prices. And so how is that going? And in terms of the customers start feeling the real benefits of cheaper prices?
And I know that there's things have been a little bit difficult, but I also know that we introduced several things. For example, we introduced where the businesses were able to get a reduction in the duties on freight, which was meant to be able to help them to transfer this so that the customers will feel some benefits. We haven't completed a survey of the prices in all the various establishments, but we are looking at that. So be able to determine what else we could do to help to stimulate the activities in the small business sector.
Was there any monitoring mechanism to ensure that whatever discounts they got, they were passing it on to the consumer?
The Trade Department has officers who, as expected, are supposed to monitor what goes on in the retail market, yes.
Premier, could you tell us what is the state of the BVI economy at this time, at least if you have any preliminary figures for 2014 in terms of economic growth?
I do not have any figures for economic growth at this point in time. That is still being put together by the Central Statistics Office.
Premier, I want to ask you a little bit about safety. We've talked in the past about gun safety, and I think there's been some talk of increasing the sentences for crimes if they involve some kind of firearm. Has there been any progress on that?
There has been progress. There has been discussed a policy about increasing the sentences, which is going before Cabinet very shortly, and a decision will be made as to what this will be before this matter is taken to the House of Assembly. Yes.
Premier, good morning. Gordon French, BVI Platinum. Going back to the question asked by Mr. Rose regarding the Prospect Reef development, has the developer expressed any concerns regarding moving forward with the project? And would you sit and wait, or would you go back to the other four? I think there were 5 persons or 5 companies that expressed interest. Would you go back to the other 4 and invite them to come and be part of the project?
Of course, thank you. The developer indicated they need to do a feasibility study and before going forward with the project, and which of course is reasonable. But we have decided not to just simply sit and wait. But this is why we also presented Prospect Reef as a potential area of investment at the CRIS conference. And we will also be presenting at the conference we'll be attending next week in New York.
Going outside the 2 areas we discussed, now last evening the Virgin Islands Party elected its new chairman. What are your expectations in terms of reaching out to the new chairman and Mr. Honorable Julian Fraser?
I'd like to offer congratulations to Mr. Fraser on his appointment. For my part, I will continue to keep focused on developing the British Virgin Islands, providing the leadership which this country needs to be able to provide for the people of the British Virgin Islands.
Do you expect greater cooperation now, or because you've had differences in the past, especially on the economy?
There will always be differences with politicians, but I will continue to focus on carrying out the programs that are necessary for the continued growth of the BVI.
Premier, Kathy Richards, Virgin Islands News Online. There are two words that are circulating in the air out there for some time now. Snap elections. Is this any consideration of your government at this time?
My concentration right now is on leading this country towards better conditions, and so I'm focused on providing the programs, providing the leadership that's necessary for the continued growth of the country, for the benefit of the country, and benefit of the people in this country. I'm not focused on election at this point.
No elections at this point.
I'm not focused on elections. I'm focused on leading the country to betterment through the kind of programs that we've been establishing over the past 3 years for the continued growth of the BVI to the benefit of the Virgin Islands. That's my focus.
Is this the focus of your entire team? Has this been coming up at any stage? Has this been considered or even thought of?
This is the focus of my entire team.
Premier Malika McPherson, the Island Sun newspaper, you spoke a lot about your intentions to more or less invite investors into the territory. And it was mentioned repeatedly in the House of Assembly by multiple legislators that complaints from investors or possible investors that the BVI is a bit difficult to do business in. And I know your government has been trying to make the area a little more less gray and less red tape. How has that been going? And can you tell us what are some of these steps and what are some of these red tapes that you've been able to eliminate?
The red tapes which we speak about is to be able to facilitate people when they interact with various agents of government. For example, the ability to have the alien land holding licenses done at a shorter time, and this actually happened. It's much quicker process now. The ability to get work permits, to be able to get immigration permits. These things have to be improved, and we have been working on that. We've also been working through the Tourist Board on training for everybody in the territory so that the attitude of the residents and the workers in the territory will that be one of welcome to the visitors to the BVI. I think this is important.
Premier Smith, going back to the figures you provided on employment, would it be possible for you to furnish us with the actual figures? I know you gave percentage and you said basically how many more persons were employed over the period of time, but would it at some stage be able to provide the actual figures? And when you look at the numbers, how do they compare with unemployment during the same period? Have you been able to compare the figures?
I'll be able to provide those figures for you as you're suggesting. I know that the average employment is around about 15,000, but I'll be able to provide those figures, more detailed figures for you.
Premier, this one has a political spin on it. 198 more people employed, but there seems to be a disconnect on the ground because many people seem to be very concerned that unemployment is actually going downwards. That is, employment, is actually going downwards. So with that concern in mind and looking at the figures, I am now forced to ask, do you think that your NDP administration will be successful at the polls come next election?
I am confident that we are on the right track. I'm confident that the government, we are doing what is necessary to improve the conditions of the people in the territory, to improve the economy of the territory so that everybody will benefit.
But why then do you think there is this disconnect? Because like I said, and I'm sure you may be aware as well of some of the concerns on the ground.
There are, the numbers that I spoke about indicate there are increased numbers of job positions available. If you, I don't have those figures at the moment, but if you were to review the work permits that are given out, you'll see that there are more people being given work permit to come into work into the territory, right? And if you were to look at the the work that is actually going on right now in the territory. For example, in Virgin Gorda, for example, at Oilnut Bay, there's approximately about 250 people employed. And at Mosquito, there's over 110 people employed as well. So there's quite a lot of work available, and this is why, and the spin-off from those, this is why the numbers are increasing for employment opportunities, yes.
But bear with me, Premier. The numbers of work permits are increasing. However, there is a concern that there is high rate of unemployment. Is it that the resident population, Virgin Islanders, are either not accessing these jobs or they are not being given opportunities to access these jobs?
The resident Virgin Islands are accessing the jobs that they want to apply for, and they are doing that. There are some jobs that they may not be interested in, which are important, for the country to go to the country. But those that have applied for the jobs are more, in the most part, getting the jobs that they are looking for. I will be able to, I think the employment figures, as somebody suggested, we can have those more detailed ones presented.
Premier, just to piggyback on Mr. French's question, and I note that you said that you don't have all of the details in front of you, but would you at least be able to say which sector seemed to be dominating in the creation of these employments?
At the moment, the construction sector has been very good when it comes to employment, and that is one of the important sectors for employment in the territory.
And just to go a little further, sir, because sometimes, it's good to forecast a bit. I'm not asking you to speculate. But given that this is a territory that depends heavily on tourism, and we are actually approaching the down season or the off season, do you think that this might actually put a damper on the good news that we're celebrating in terms of the peak in employment, considering that a lot of people are going to be seasonally terminated?
What is happening, we all know that the BVI is a tourism destination and there are peaks. We also know that the other part of the economy is financial services, which does not have the same kind of peaks as they exist in the tourism services. The employment of people, while I say that the construction industry has been very active, I mentioned places like Oilnut Bay and Mosquito. There's also increasing employment opportunities in other areas. As I said, to be able to be specific about giving you what numbers are employed in what area, that I'm not able to do at this point in time. But there are also increasing opportunities in financial services areas and in other areas in the territory.
Premier, I'm happy that you mentioned the financial services area, especially as it relates to employment. It's a cry from Virgin Islanders, though, that they're actually being limited to accessing much of the opportunities in that sector. Can you explain how that area has been contributing to the figures that we're talking about now? Because as I was told, some of the unemployment numbers result from termination from the same sector.
That is true. In some cases, there have been some reduction in staff in some of the companies, but in other cases, there's been an increase in staff. And there have also been some increase in companies which are establishing in the territory. As I said, I cannot give you those numbers per se, but there are indications that there are increasing employment opportunities in the sector because of new companies being established, and some companies increasing in numbers. I do agree that at the same time some companies have decreased, but there's also the situation where some companies are increasing, and there are new companies in the territory.
Premier Smith, some time ago, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Labour presented a study on the value of the ecosystem to the tourism sector. And I know Dr. Pickering said the next stage is to have the cabinet adopt that study. Has that happened as yet?
What do you mean by that?
He basically said the next phase was to bring the report to the cabinet and to have the cabinet adopt.
To have the report accepted, noted by the cabinet. No, that has not come as yet.
And one other question. In relation to an issue involving mothers are complaining that when child support is paid over to the government, they're not getting the checks from the from Ministry of Finance fast enough. It takes too long for them, and they're encountering difficulties. Have you heard those complaints, and are you moving to address them?
I have not heard that complaint, honestly. But if you telling me now that there is such a complaint, I will check on it. But I have not heard that complaint. Yeah.
I want to ask you a question about governance. You've said in the past that you would be open to opening up the register of interests. And I know that in the beginning of the year during Standing Finance, the registrar indicated that there were a couple more holdups in terms of establishing the right committee to really get the registry going. Has there been any progress on that?
The question about the committee for the registry, that will, I have already indicated to the Speaker of the House that we expect to have that formed. So perhaps at the next session of the House, that will be brought forward.
Premier, going back to the employment topic, I know the Minister of Education and Culture some time back brought up the issue of outsourcing, and as government tries to stimulate employment, what do you think can be some of the steps taken to thwart this whole phenomenon?
There are many suggestions to be made by members of the business community, which have been looked at by and reviewed by the unit in the Ministry of Finance. When that is complete, we'll be able to have a more definitive answer.
Premier, I observed from folks in the legal fraternity that there's a call for an increase in the maximum penalty for persons who commit rape, incest, and so forth. Have you seen this, and what are your own take? What is your own take on this?
We are actually, at the moment, reviewing the Legal Profession Act. Is this what you're speaking about?
Yes.
Yeah. It's had its first reading, and we expect that it will have a second reading within maybe shortly, maybe not at the upcoming session of the House, but certainly by the one after that, yeah. And we have received views on the Act from all the members in the community who have an interest, and they've been taken into consideration.
Also, Premier, another observation. I noticed that the gentleman who proposed the idea of a Latino poker run was in the media space suggesting that he was ignored, turned down. Any particular reason why that idea was not attractive to government?
Government supports initiatives that would increase activity in the country, tourism or otherwise, but government is not always in a position to give financial support to everyone who, applies for financial support. Government has to look at its priorities, look at the programs that have been presented, and make a decision.
Thank you. And another question, Premier. This time in relation to the political aspect of things. Your new contender, so to speak, from the VIP will be Honorable Fraser. Do you anticipate a more robust campaign and competition coming from the VIP to take over governance?
That I cannot tell you, and what I know is that myself and my government will continue to do what we have been doing. This is working hard for the development of the country and the benefit of the people of BVI.
You seem very confident, Premier, that neither the People's Empowerment Party nor the VIP can remove you from office.
What I will say to you is that when we were elected last time, we gave the people of this country a promise to work very hard towards improving the economic situation of the territory and the benefits. We have been working steadfastly there. We had challenges, of course, because we came into office in a very difficult time due to part of a recession, challenges of financial services, but we've made significant progress. And I think the people in this territory, I think, do appreciate it and will continue to appreciate the work that we've been doing.
And what about the 9th District representative? As you said, he has made a sterling contribution, to use my word, to the territory. How do you see the territory celebrating his time in office?
That is something that will be decided. But as I said before, he did make a sterling contribution. I have congratulated him both via the media and personally.
Thank you.
Premier, since we're talking a lot about figures today, can you please give us an update on the 2010 census?
I'm afraid that the 2010 census, I do not have the updated figures. They have been steadily worked on, and I know that the unit is putting overtime into getting them out. When they're completed, then I'll be able to do that.
And also, Premier, I know the freedom of information legislation is something that has been floating around for a very long time. I think there was a draft, and there is a draft. Can you at least tell us a little about that?
We have not looked at the Freedom of Information Act in the past 2 years. It is something that we have discussed from time to time. For example, the Human Rights Act that had been put in because during the last constitutional review, and the Freedom of Information is kind of like an offspring of that, and it's something that will, be coming to the forefront. But we have not had the time to discuss that at this time.
But just to actually follow up, this is a legislation that continues to be lingering along. Can you explain why, from a government perspective, why it's taken so long? I think the Law Reform Commission did some of the work, there were consultation, etc., but it continues to lag behind. Can you state why, please?
There's no reason why it hasn't been brought to the forefront. But the fact is that there are many matters which the government has to consider, which we are working on, and which are, priority. For example, trying to build the economy is our number one priority. Looking at the health of the country and bringing forward those legislations and doing what is necessarily important. Looking at the education aspect, these are priority things that we have been working on very steadfastly. That is, for example, why we have made such progress on the hospital. We'll be able to hopefully be opening it very soon. That's why we've made such great progress on the in the education sector. For example, we are now starting to work on the basketball court in Virgin Gorda. So there are many areas of activity which we're working on which are important to the development. And it's not to say that we are ignoring other things.
I'm sorry. Also, Premier, I know recently on the tourism front, there were some steps made in the USVI in terms of having greeters and things like that. And I know also the ferry situation and ways of improving that was brought up at the Inter-Virgin Islands Council. Can you please give an update and say how that went and how the greeting service and so forth is going?
The greeting service we saw as an important move because we felt it was necessary for our visitors to be welcomed in a better way as they transited the USVI ticket to get to the British Virgin Islands. We were able to work with the United States Virgin Islands, and they were able to allow us to install 2 persons as greeters. That situation is working very well. In fact, I saw them in action a couple of times. They were very professional, and the persons with the help were very grateful.
Premier, you touched a bit there about talking about development at Virgin Gorda. You spoke of the basketball court. Of much interest to the people there is the issue of the expansion of the clinic or the development of a small hospital there. What's going on?
That is one of the objectives of our government. And just recently, the specs of that for proposed building has been completed, And it will, if it is out of the tender, it will soon be out of tender. So that persons who are interested in taking on that project will be able to do so.
What's the time frame you're looking at getting it started?
There's we expect to get get it started this year. If not this year, certainly early next year.
And what will we have in a hospital or an extended clinic?
It will not be a hospital with 60 beds. It'll be a larger clinic with facilities for patients to stay in the clinic. Some people call it, some say a mini hospital. Some say it's difficult to really place. But essentially, we'll be expanding the RSNA clinic to be able to offer more services than is offered right now, to be able to offer better emergency care, to be able to offer beds for inpatients at that hospital.
Premier Smith, I just wanted to go back with Malika's question concerning the ferry and the greeter service. While the greeter service is welcomed, your visitors and residents have to pay a tax now when they leave St. Thomas, and also when we leave the BVI and come next July 1st, the tax will be increased. So do you see this as a deterrent for probably visitors and then for the burden on the residents themselves in terms of traveling to and from St. Thomas?
We put in place the greeters in order to be able to give the persons visiting us a better experience. But as with all countries, there must be ways to increase revenue to the country so that we can provide the services for the same visitors who are coming. So you can build the infrastructure, provide the roads, can provide the hospitals, provide the clinics, to be able to look after those same visitors when you come. I think that's why we have to do those things.
Was it something that was discussed between BVI and USVI concerning the tax from St. Thomas? Because it's like you were traveling and all of a sudden you were told that you have to pay this tax, no warnings before.
No, there was no discussion. That was with USVI, their own territory, and we cannot decide what taxes they should be imposed, nor can they decide what taxes we should impose. So it was a matter that they took on themselves, yeah.
Yeah, but just a case of informing.
I know.
Premier, do you think that was reciprocity, given the taxes that the BVI had imposed?
I don't think so. I think the USVI, as well as the BVI and the other territories in the Caribbean, all having their difficulties with their financial commitments, and they must look for ways to increase their revenue.
Premier, recently we had a little rift with the BVI night at St. Thomas and having our groups participate in that activity. How did the negotiations go? Were you able to mend differences as it relates to what had caused our bands not to be given the required permission to perform?
Oh, I see. That matter was brought up in the Virgin Islands conference. The governor himself said that he would look into it with a committee which had been set up to review the situation as far as bands are concerned.
Yes, Mr. Premier, you did not address the ferry question.
I'm sorry. You would have observed that during the last season, the ferry that came from the United States was here to help to relieve the situation with the ferries not being able to cope with the visitors coming to the BVI. Since that time, the ferries have improved their service, they've improved the condition of the vessels, and we expect that they'll be able to be more in a better state of readiness to be able to handle the traffic of visitors coming from St. Thomas during the coming season.
Premier, you mentioned that the Peebles Hospital is going to be opening soon. Do we have a target opening date yet?
No, that is something that the Minister of Health will decide. And I'm sure he will be making an announcement when he thinks it's ready. But all the preparatory work has been done. And you do recall there was a handing over ceremony for the keys a few months ago.
Honorable Mayor, I have one final clarification. At the second anniversary of the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship in Jamaica, BVI-based developer Richard Branson said he persuaded the BVI government, I'm quoting from the Jamaica Gleaner of November 2013, to allocate $6 million to give loans to young people with good ideas, end quote. But in March of 2013, he said here to local media that he was encouraged to lend money, I suspect from his own coffers, to young entrepreneurs after a conversation with you. And of course, not long after you, as Premier, did present to the territory the idea or the opportunity for young people to access loans. So I'm a bit lost as to where exactly that idea came from. Was it your idea? Was it Branson's idea? And is it really $6 million?
Mr. Richard and myself did have a discussion about working with the Business Bureau of the British Virgin Islands to facilitate and help young people, particularly, and other people, get into small businesses and help them to succeed. But you do recall that the Business Bureau of the Virgin Islands was established first in 2004. And it, of course, did not, after when I got back into office, I sort of gave it new impetus because we thought it's important in helping the young people particularly to develop businesses on their own. Since then, since the Bureau was established, they have been given out about 15 loans so far, a tune of over about just over $1 million. Good. Okay, I want to thank you all for coming, and I appreciate your questions. Look forward to meeting you again. Thank you.